Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for attending today's webinar. If you've been joining us for the first two parts of this series, a lot of this content should be familiar, and today we'll be focusing a lot on the next generation services. If this is your first time, welcome. We will review a little bit on the first two parts. Those recordings are available on our website, and I think you'll see a lot of good information on today's presentation as well. So Jake, if you don't mind, we'll get started. So as mentioned, we've had two events to date. We focused a lot on legislation and compliance. We did talk about dispatchable location quite a bit. And today we'll talk a lot about that as it relates to next gen 911 services. So introductions, yeah, go ahead, Jake, that's fine. I'm Joe Puckett, Director of Business Development in the Northeast. One of my roles here is to bring content like this and our partners to clients. And with that, Jake, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So Jake Damphouse, Channel Manager with 911 Inform. I've been working with Joe and the New Era team for the past few months to bring 911, next gen 911 solutions into their product line. And it's been a real joy to work with Joe and his team to get this going. So Joe, I'll go back to you real quick.
Great, thank you. And Mark Fletcher will not be joining us today. For those that perhaps are new to New Era, very quickly, you can see on the left-hand side there, 40 plus offices worldwide, really approaching at this point 1,800 plus employees. And I think most importantly to know is all the way from education and research, as we are right now perhaps, through installation and post-support, we have an entire team of engineers, installers, technicians that can help you through that process. And Jake, if you go to the next slide, graphically, you'll see some of our core focus areas. Today, we're focusing on collaboration and UC and some security line safety. But as you can see, we have an entire portfolio of services. Data networking commonly comes up in these discussions around security, very strong Microsoft practice as well. And towards the bottom, you'll see our pro services, managed services, and our Cloud Blue, which are a suite of our cloud services. So just know, if you have any requirements there, reach out to your New Era representative. And Jake, with that, we'll get you started. I'm really looking forward to today's content. I've been through this before with you as well as customer meetings, and I know this is very, very useful for our clients. So I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Thanks again. So today we're going to talk about sort of the end-to-end. We've gone through legislation and we've gone through device location. And we'll do those recaps in just a moment so that it kind of, from a timeline, we can go all the way through. But really what today we're talking about is that NG911 capability and some of the capabilities that the NG911 network gives us when it comes to connected building technologies and communication. So if we just kind of recap the compliance and the laws that are out there real quick. In our first session, we kind of dove deep into where all this started, the incident with Carrie Hunt in Marshall, Texas back in 2013, which spawned Carrie's Law, which was signed in February 2018, required 911 to be direct access to public safety. So you cannot have a prefix before you dial out. So you can't have 9 for 911. And then it also requires an on-site notification to someone within that facility that will be aware of it. Really, that is because if you think of the incident with Carrie Hunt, her daughter tried to call 911 4 times. No one within the building actually knew what was going on. Maybe if they did, they would have known, and the response could have been a little bit quicker. Ray Bombs Act, Parts 1 and 2. Part 1 went into effect this past January. Required an on-site notification as well, but what it also requires is a dispatchable location to be sent both with that on-site notification and with the 911 call. if we look at the top right here, the dispatchable location definition is really that the street address of the caller plus additional information needed to locate the calling party in a reasonable amount of time. We went through this a little bit in our previous session, but really if we look at the two environments where data is sort of converted on the back end and then sent to public safety when those calls come through. In the E911 environment, it's really limited to 20 characters of text, that red box that you see on the line, on that picture there. The first line is basically just the basic street address, and then that second line is that dispatchable location information. So that could be something along the lines of Suite C, room 231. That could be West Wing. It's basically different from each building because there's, each building is unique, and the information that could be relevant to public safety is also unique to each building. With the NG911 environment, the capability to send multimedia data across the to public safety is opened up, and from there we can send interactive floor plans, additional capabilities like door access control and cameras. We're really going to dive into that and those extra capabilities. So from an end-to-end perspective, where we go from device location, understanding where these devices are located, so when they do call, we have valid information to be sent, like we see on this screen here, correctly sending that call through to the correct location, to the correct responding 911 center. And then once that emergency response begins, some of the capabilities that NextGen 911 provides to the enterprise as well as to public safety, some of the response tools they can use while they're responding to these events. So if we look at this from a real environment, what that really looks like, over the past decade or so, most organizations have been upgrading or implementing technologies for security purposes in their facilities. Things like video cameras and security, video security systems, door access control, and then even further in the last 5 or so years, the advancement of AI detection or AI technologies such as weapons detection, gunshot detection. Recently, we've encountered temperature sensors and license plate readers. So there's really an endless amount of technology that can be used for a security and safety standpoint. But where it kind of falls short is a lot of these systems are siloed. They have their own software and platforms that they kind of run on. So in the event of an emergency, if you had to extend any of this information out, it would likely have to be piecemealed together for whoever is responding. The goal of our system is that we take all of these triggers, whether it be a 911 call, a gunshot detector, a facial recognition for someone who's not supposed to be on your property, and those triggers basically get aggregated into our system so that all of these different emergencies create a consistent and repeatable emergency response format. From there, we make it consumable and actionable. So from emergency to emergency, there's a consistency that essentially allows those first responders and internal responders to respond in a more convenient fashion. And again, that challenge of all these technologies being siloed is not to be overlooked. We see a lot when we discuss that, especially in the education space, where the local public safety, police, fire, EMS, they likely have a better relationship with the education and the school districts than typical enterprise does. Sometimes what we see is a limited amount of access. Certain officers may have key cards to the doors at the high school and middle school, but often, some have it, some don't, some have no access at all. So really the goal of all of this is to put it all into a single pane of glass. There are some solutions out there that it's basically a one-way channel if they can send anything to public safety at all. Any information on the location, anything that may involve the nature of what the emergency is. And then public safety has what they've received from the call itself or any additional information that was sent with the call. And that's really where the communication lines end. So the goal of our platform is to create a two-way communication path between your organization and your school districts with public safety. So that can even include your on-site security teams, some of those higher education groups that are on the call, basically providing a consistent and quick way to provide all that information at the time that the emergency response is beginning and taking place. That single pane of glass method basically gives a one-stop shop for being able to look at cameras, doors, any relevant information, emergency devices, and we're going to kind of go into how that all ties in and what that really looks like in just a moment. But this is all hosted on the platform itself, and it's a completely web-based platform. We don't have to go download software or applications to the devices that will be using this or being notified. So therefore, it's easily accessible. It's sent through text messages, emails. We do have some software where if you have a security operations center or something like that, where you want a desktop to be able to pop open an alert, we can certainly do that as well. And finally, it's a secure platform. Each one of those events is a one-time access only. And once we hit the end of the presentation, I'll go into how that really works. But security is one of our main concerns, and it's one of those things where, especially in the K-12 realm, parents and guardians don't necessarily want the police to have access to cameras and doors 24/7, but they certainly want that access given when there is an emergency that's going on. So from a notification standpoint, if we look at, let's say a college campus or even a K-12 campus that has multiple buildings on the same, in the same lot, what often happens is we have to understand first the building of where that location or that emergency is coming from. More often than not, we see with college campuses, there's one single address for a campus of 40 to 50 buildings. So in order to completely identify the specific building where that emergency is taking place, we first look at it from a 30,000 feet view, right? And we understand, okay, this is the specific building. It could be a dorm room, it could be an annex building at a high school. Just to understand, okay, this is the high level information. So we really provide that high level information so that, for someone who's unfamiliar with that space that's responding, can look at it, and then what they can do is dig down, and they can look straight into that building to see the exact room location of where that emergency is coming from. From there, if you can see that red line, it also provides best access route to that emergency. So, someone pulling up to a building where they're maybe not too familiar with the layout, they can understand, okay, I need to enter at the north door here. I go down the hill and to the right, and that's where that emergency is. So it's really just providing more specific information than if we think back to that E911 data where, this could just say, 123 Main Street, Ops Building Room D. Especially if Ops Building Room D isn't the only building that's at 123 Main Street, it could be a little tricky for public safety to understand where that call is coming from. At the bottom of every one of these events, there is a common chat platform, and this is really where that bi-directional communication can be opened up. These events can be extended to public safety. So all of your internal responders, as well as the public safety responding teams, have the ability to communicate with each other, share any information excuse me, share any information such as, maybe what the nature of the emergency is, where the responding teams are, what's happening until those responding teams arrive at the event. So really it's completely open. If you think of it as like a first responders group chat, that's kind of what this is, and it can allow all those responders to be on the same page in the same spot. As we dig down and we've looked at these from a floor plans, and we're providing those floor plans as part of our service, and it really provides a few different value in a few different ways. Obviously, with notification, understanding the room from where that, or the location from where that call is coming from, is important. But we can also mark assets on the map, such as AEDs, fire extinguishers, potentially hazardous materials like gases in a chemistry room, or some things along those lines. So beyond just notifying of where that emergency is located, we can add, obviously the cameras, which we'll get to in a minute in a little bit more detail. But we have things like AEDs. So if in a medical emergency, we need to alert the internal responders as to where the AEDs are located within the building. We can start to pop those on the map as well. Fire extinguishers. Really, this isn't limited to the specific things I'm talking about here. These are just some examples. We can certainly mark things on the map that you may feel are important.
Hey Jake, I just want to touch on two things, and you mentioned one of them already, but I'll restate it. I think there are two things that are common in some of the meetings we're having. First and foremost, Jake mentioned this, but digitizing these floor plans are included with this service. So a lot of times folks might be overwhelmed thinking, oh my goodness, I don't have these. How are we ever going to do this? So Jake's team will be taking care of that for you. And secondly, I've also found on these calls that there's a concern that the school system may not think that public safety will have all of this information. And Jake, I'll ask you to sort of jump in on that, but public safety, I think 93% of locations across the country have access to this data, and some may not even know it yet. And your platform allows for that communication to happen. Am I speaking correctly there?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. That's a great point. The ability for this data to be sent to public safety is already widespread. It's through an integration, and it's already in PSAPs, or public safety answering points. Also, the 911 center, commonly referred to in 93% of the population. So it's already widespread, and it's also free to public safety. Public safety can use these tools to effectively enhance their response. So from the perspective of how public safety can use this, the 911 call comes in, and then this gets extended to the public safety responders, whether that be law, fire, EMS. So if we think of a police officer, they have their tough book in their cruiser. What they can do is open this event up on that tough book, and then they can reach over and look at the cameras that are closest to that emergency before they've even arrived at the emergency. And it may give them some additional information or situational awareness prior to even arriving. Potentially can change or alter how they respond to the event.
Great, thanks, Jake.
Yep. And then on a similar fashion, we have door access control. So same officer that may look at the camera, they can reach over and unlock the door if that door is locked that they need to get through to get to the emergency, and then they can lock it right back up. It's basically handing over those key cards for those who may not have them, or if they're an inconsistent sort of feature in your organization. So from a public safety response, we've talked about some things already that can be used for both the internal teams, the external teams. You can certainly hand these technologies to your internal teams as well as door locks, communication, and cameras, things like that. But from the public safety's perspective, we've worked with SWAT teams and tactical police units to try to develop some digitized versions of protocols that they use when they're responding to, high threat events such as an active shooter or a lockdown. And what they really wanted was a streamlined and fast way to clear a building. Obviously, this is much more public safety, but just to understand that the features are there for an efficient and safe response for your organization. With just the click of a button, they can clear out rooms. And instead of having to go room to room and then having a little bit of miscommunication as far as, this room is clear, this room isn't, it's marked on the map, as you can see here. All the green rooms are clear. And from there, you can start to potentially aid the people in those rooms that may need medical attention. And that everyone's on the same page as far as where in the building the cleared rooms have been taken place. There's a mass notifications solution built within the product. We have the capabilities to send 64,000 text messages and emails in a minute. So whether these are emergency notifications or just snow day closings, COVID alerts, updates, marketing, reminders for the football game on a Friday night, all of this is built into the platform. And I'll get to in a moment kind of where the importance lies with the SIS integration. But really it's a free mass notification service that has about 64,000 text messages and emails per minute. And finally, I know kind of out of order a little bit, but from a response perspective, Battleship Mode was something that some of those tactical teams requested, where they could basically put that campus or map in a grid format. Gives them the ability to mark down any specific assets that it could be a potential bomb, it could be a collection point where they want to set up a command station for whatever event that they're responding to. It basically just provides everyone a common place to mark specific locations. So some specific features that kind of come out of an integration to the student information system. We've worked with, I want to say, over a dozen SIS systems to effectively understand, if there were something like a lockdown or an active shooter situation, what tools that we could provide in that emergency response to, streamline and understand the safety of the students and the teachers when an event went on. Now, with panic buttons, it's there's an additional law out there. It's called Alyssa's Law. It's active in New Jersey and Florida at the moment, and it's gaining steam across a few other states. But really, it requires a silent panic button within a school facility. And one of the, as we talked about earlier with those emergency triggers, panic buttons are another emergency trigger to us that can effectively alarm the system and set off those consistent notifications, whether it be that 911 call or a panic button. We actually do have a free panic button app that will allow, teachers, students, whoever needs those panic buttons. You can allow students, you may not be able to, may not want to. It's completely up to your organization. But it sets off those consistent alerts as well. With the SIS integration, if you did have something along the lines of a fire, or you needed to relocate those students after an event, We tried to digitize that reunification process to try, it's typically a chaotic time. You're moving students to a different location. You have to alert parents and guardians that their student is at a different location. So what we've really done is we've provided the ability to mark those students as moved to, let's say, the courthouse down the road. What we can then do is notify their specific parent or guardians where those students are. You can do that in a staggered manner. Obviously, you don't want to have a complete rush of parents and guardians trying to pick everything up, diffuse a little bit of the chaos. And then once those parents and guardians do come to retrieve their student, there's safety mechanisms in place where you can send them a direct text message with a PIN number that you can verify, and we log each student's release. We also have some license scanning capabilities, but it's an attempt to really diffuse some of the chaos that comes along with reunification. You can designate safety areas within each room, and this will notify public safety and the internal responders as to exactly where in a specific room that safety area is, typically away from doors and windows. So if public safety had to come through, they would at least know where the potential students and teacher would be in that room. You can send safety checks to your staff. Basically what happens is each staff member gets a text message basically saying, are you safe? Click or respond yes for, or Y for yes, N for no. And then on the platform itself, it will basically aggregate all of those responses so that you can understand where those teachers are and if they are safe. And finally, just a couple more things before we wrap up here. Closing an event, as I had talked about earlier, the security of the technologies and the information is certainly of interest to us. So each event is unique. While there may be the same responding teams that respond to the different events throughout a week or month or year, each one is unique in that a URL is sent for each specific event. And once that event is closed out, the URL that they use to access the cameras, the technology, the door access, and any other information that was within the event is no longer there. They basically just click that link and it will bring them to a blank screen. For the next event, there will be a new URL, and the same process applies from event to event. After the event is closed, we do, during the event, log and track all actions that were taken. So whoever, user by user, if they looked at a camera, marked an asset on the map, opened a door, all that information is stored and can be generated in reports after the fact. The other thing that this kind of provides, what we've commonly seen from some school districts, is some need for reporting on drill capabilities. This system is fully functional as a drill mode. You can choose to involve public safety, or you can run that as an internal drill. Those events will also provide these reporting. So I know there are some states that mandate reporting on drills that were done throughout the school year. So these could provide those after reports.
Thanks, Jake, so much. I guess I would add here, Jake, if you don't mind moving to the next slide. On the post-webinar survey, there'll be a box to check off if you want to take part in this meeting. But more than the meeting itself, I just want to talk about what usually happens and what we see out there. So what I've seen with clients so far is within each organization, within each school, there's a maybe a different level of priority associated with 911. Everyone knows it's important for sure, but each department has a different level of priority or even budget, if at any all, associated to this. So what this exercise does, or what I've seen so far, is unites the different groups within the organization. So we have, the phone group working with IT, working with physical security, with operations, with local public and safety. And oftentimes we can get all of those groups together. So what I'm finding is no matter what the direction is, whether they go with the solution or not, everyone's on the same page, moving in the same direction with the same baseline of information. So I say that again, in the survey, you can check off to have this meeting, and I think you will find value in that. The deliverables, as you'll see, we'll have a 1-hour discovery meeting. We'll talk specifically about your current environment. What systems are you using today? What are the loopholes? What does your 911 procedure look like today? We'll have a demo based on your use case. And if desired, we'll provide you a bill of materials for budgetary exercises if you want to look at what the solution would cost. Jake, anything I'm missing there that you would add to that?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. How all of the departments working together kind of keeps it consistent throughout the demonstration and conversations that we do have, and any issues that may arise can kind of rear their head a little bit early, and we can kind of move forward as a whole group.
And I'll add to that, and maybe this is something, Jake, you can cover your ears if you want. But I have seen on these meetings, and Jake's been part of these, that sometimes just talking through the process, we can determine that the school can be compliant or compliant to the level they need to be without a system like this. It literally is change in process or a slight change to the environment. So anyways, I'd recommend these meetings are great, and you can check that off in the survey. Jake, I think that's it if we advance. Yeah, folks, as always, thanks for attending. I hope you found these webinars useful. If you attended all three, thanks for sticking that out with us. And if this was your first, again, you can go back and view the other recordings. From my perspective in closing, Jake, I want to thank you and 911 Inform so much. You guys have been great helping us get this message out to our clients. Anything that we need to highlight from a presentation standpoint? Anything you want to close with?
No, I just want to thank you and Joe and then the whole New Era team for really backing on this. It's been great to work with you guys. And thanks to all those who are on the calls, whether it be one or three. Really do appreciate your interest. And as Joe said, whether you take that meeting, and it's very, very possible that you could become compliant just by change of process. That's fine with us, obviously. So I just want to thank you and the New Era team again, Joe.
Great, thank you. Once again, thank you for everyone for attending today, and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.